Hello, everyone. My name's Aaron Christensen. This is Horror 101 with Dr. AC, celebrating classic horror throughout history with new episodes every Friday night. Sam Raimi's The Evil Dead from 1981 stands as one of the most influential independent horror films ever made, redefining what low-budget cinema could achieve and leaving a lasting imprint on the genre. Shot on a shoestring budget by Raimi and his childhood friends, including actor Bruce Campbell, the film follows 5 college students who unwittingly unleash demonic forces while staying in a remote Tennessee cabin. Its premise is simple, but its execution is relentlessly inventive. What made The Evil Dead significant was not merely its graphic violence or shocking gore, though both were extreme for the time, but Raimi's kinetic visual style. Using improvised camera rigs, frenetic tracking shots, and aggressive editing, Raimi gave the film a sense of manic energy that distinguished it from the slower, atmospheric horror of the late 1970s. The now iconic unseen force camera rush became a hallmark of the series and influenced countless later filmmakers. Evil Dead's unapologetic extremity also helped push horror toward a more visceral, confrontational direction in the 1980s. Equally important is the franchise's tonal evolution. While 1981's Evil Dead is largely played straight as a brutal nightmarish experience, Raimi's sequels transformed horror by blending it with slapstick comedy. Evil Dead 2 from 1987 and Army of Darkness from 1992 turned Ash Williams into a chainsaw-wielding, wisecracking antihero, effectively creating a horror comedy that was both self-aware and technically ambitious. Suddenly, a horror film could be simultaneously terrifying, absurd, insanely gory, and wildly entertaining. The influence of The Evil Dead extends far beyond its films. The franchise has spawned comic book series, novels, and a long-running line of video games, many of which expand the mythology of the Necronomicon and Ash's battles with the Deadites. The 2013 remake, the cable series Ash vs. Evil Dead, and 2023's Evil Dead Rise further prove the property's durability, appealing to both new audiences and longtime fans. Ultimately, The Evil Dead endures because it embodies creative freedom. It showed that passion, ingenuity, and a willingness to take risks could overcome financial limitations, inspiring generations of horror filmmakers and cementing its place as a cornerstone of modern genre cinema. Let's hop in the old Buick and head down the road to that little cabin in the woods. We're talking 45 years of The Evil Dead, and we have an incredible panel to chat about with me. Let's bring everybody in, and let's say hello to Christy Jett.
Hi, I'm Christy Jett.
Beaming in from New Zealand, Joseph Wyckoff.
Groovy.
Just down the street from me in Chicago, Daniel Millhouse.
Howdy.
Ryan Olson and Jen Olson.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us.
And Anna Mariah.
Hello.
And we'll be chatting about The Evil Dead from 1981, celebrating its 45th anniversary. And we'll also be talking about Evil Dead 2 from 1987, Army of Darkness from 1992, Evil Dead, the remake from 2013, Evil Dead Rise from 2023, and we may even talk about Ash versus Evil Dead, the TV series from 2015-2018. And we will be talking spoilers, so just prepare yourselves, everybody, because we're going deep. Thanks for coming on the show, and welcome. Joseph and I were laughing backstage that we're basically, this whole show is just going to be people going, that line was really funny, huh? I'm really excited to hear people's origin stories for all of these films, actually, because I think everybody's got some fun stories of how this film came to them and how it landed for them, and maybe even which one of the Evil Deads they saw for the first time. Christy, would you mind kicking us off? How did you come to the Evil Dead world for the first time?
Yeah, the first time I saw Evil Dead, I want to say I was about 13, and I was so, like, I had ideas that I wanted to be a screenwriter, but after seeing Evil Dead, I was like, no, I'm going to be a director too, because I was so blown away by everything in that film. And I fell in love with Sam. He became my hero. He still is. Just everything that was so unique about that film and so grassroots and balls to the wall, if you will. I just really loved it. So that's how I started, about 13 or so.
Joseph, how about you?
I was probably around 18 years old, and my older brother would go to the video store and come home with some randomness that he had very strong older brother energy of bringing it home and saying, you're going to enjoy this. And usually it was just the picture on the box. And I think he knew I was not a horror fan, but that I would watch it if he said that I should. And for about the first 20 minutes, I remember watching Evil Dead 2 and thinking, this is the worst movie I've ever seen. And about 20 minutes in, I went, this is the greatest movie I've ever seen. And then I think it played on a loop for about the next 10 years in my life in some corner. And I think it was about 10 years before I finally went back and watched Evil Dead. And then I was a regular watcher of Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell and the whole trilogy. Great stuff.
Awesome. Daniel, how'd you come to this one?
Well, I think this might be my introduction into becoming a horror fan. I saw it probably around 15. I'm actually from Michigan. My dad went to MSU. I think he went to college with Raimi and Campbell. He didn't know any of them, but they were at college at the same time. And for me, it was, you're in high school and I had a bunch of theater friends, and the one I became close with was like, you gotta watch Evil Dead. And I remember seeing the VHS tape and being even scared of the VHS tape. And I remember watching it in my bedroom on one of those TVs that also has the VHS. Wow, I can't say VHS anymore. That's how outdated VHS is. The VHS player in the TV. And I remember my parents not knowing anything about it. So, but they're screaming and there's so much horror. And I remember acting like I was sleeping, pausing it, going back to sleep and then turning back on. And I was like addicted to it. And I think part of it was I shouldn't be watching this at this age and things like that. And also the Michigan connection. I think that also helped.
Yeah, I'm glad you led with that. Jen, let's go ahead and start with you and then over to Ryan.
I was 16, I believe, hanging out at a friend's house and they had it on. Evil Dead 2 was my first one I saw. And I absolutely fell in love with it. I couldn't keep my eyes off the screen. And my friends were like, come on, we were supposed to go somewhere. And I just wanted to sit there and keep watching. So then, of course, I had to go out and rent part 1 and 2 and 3. I became a fan ever since. And yeah, I'm in Michigan. I grew up in Michigan. So finding out they're all based in Michigan, I was like, oh, this is awesome.
Nice. And Ryan.
Bear with me. Mine is a bit of an epic story. So,
I hold my beer. I got one for you too.
Okay. Well, but I'm just pre-warning you that it's a bit of a story. But I mean, because it's my number one favorite horror movie of all time. So when I was growing up, I was a horror fan and a monster fan. And as I got older, I was finally being allowed to see more movies and things like that. Well, growing up not too far away from my house, there was a convenience store called Open Pantry. And it was one of those shops you could get everything. It's where I got Mad magazines and all that fun stuff. But they had 2 little wire video racks. And on there were 3 of the most important movies for me that I found there. And that was Creepers, Burial Ground, but The Evil Dead was the one that I would always go in there and see. And it was the VHS was the one that they had there, but it was the clamshell version of this HBO thing. And I would go in there and just stare at it and look at it and read it, and this ferociously original horror film and, bodily dismemberment on the back and just that classic image of that woman with the arm around her throat and it's like, oh my God, what is this? I got to see this. And it felt like years that I'd been looking at this. So in the summer of 1987 was a very pivotal, life-changing moment for me. My parents were in the process of splitting up. And I went to stay over by a really good buddy of mine's house named Scott for 2 weeks. And 2 things happened during that time. One of which he introduced me to Master of Puppets from Metallica, which changed my life completely. I mean, I'm a musician, everything because of it. But the other big one was we rented Evil Dead. His parents were gone, and we went to this Open Pantry and we rented it, and it was finally going to see this movie. So we sat down. The house was dark. It was just him and me. And we were just absolutely blown away. Jaws on the floor. I mean, scared the living shit out of us, everything. It was just absolutely fantastic. And then my uncle had Evil Dead 2 on VHS. And I borrowed it from him. And I probably had it for maybe years before I finally gave it back. And I watched it nonstop, endlessly. Those first 2 movies, but especially the first Evil Dead. I mean, it's... like I said, it was absolutely life-changing for me. Everything about it blew me away.
And Anna.
So my first experience with anything Evil Dead related was we had a VHS copy of Army of Darkness when I was growing up. And I had no idea that it was like part of a series. Like I just had always watched it when I was little as like a standalone movie about this guy who like gets sucked into a portal back in time and has to fight these. Like I had there's like no other context for it, but I was like, this movie is great. Like it's funny and just has all of these like goofy effects, like Harryhausen skeletons and stuff going on. It was just like this fantasy comedy adventure classic of my childhood. And then I found out later, it was like there's 2 whole movies that happened before then. It was like, what? So, and that was about the time that I was like really getting into the horror boards and really like kickstarting my whole like horror education, as it were. So then I think I just bought copies of Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 and like finally got to watch those. I think I was probably like maybe 20 or 21 or something by the time I saw them. There's this huge gap of time and it was like, oh, so it's not like, like these fantasy films. Like it was so weird to me, but I came to the whole series like kind of late, later than everyone else, but like finding out the context was like, oh.
See, it must have been the same for us who had grown up with Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 to get Army of Darkness. You're like, wait, what?
What's going on?
That's not
saving for when we get to that one.
I mean, I would argue that Army of Darkness is best seen standalone, not knowing that it's part of anything else, because as I was revisiting them this week, I was like, this is the one that it just like, what? This just needs to be over here. Like everything else feels Evil Dead. This one feels like it's its own thing. And I enjoyed it more than I had in the past because I was seeing it as its own thing as opposed to trying to be part of the Evil Dead universe. So my origin story with Evil Dead was I first heard about it in the pages of Twilight Zone magazine. It was mostly fixated on literature and short stories and things like that, but they would also talk about horror goings on. And they talked about, it was 1983, I believe, and they talked about this movie, The Evil Dead, that Stephen King had championed. And they talked about how it was so gooey that it wasn't really bloody. It was just like, it was the kind of thing that made you think of like Tootsie Rolls and things like that. So fast forward to 1986, it is my prom night. And because I am the cool dude that I am, I don't have a date for prom, but my friends and I, we're all planning to get together after the dumb dance, and we're going to watch horror movies all night long. So we watched Nightmare on Elm Street, Pieces, The Howling 2, and Evil Dead. And I remember us, when you got to the scene with the tree in the forest, and we're like, did we just see that? Yep. And we rewound it, and we rewound it, and we rewound it, and we rewound it. And we're like, that branch is going right in there. That's not okay. You can't do that. And so like we actually had a freeze frame of it up for a very long time. We're like, I don't, we're all stupid high school kids. We don't have no idea what's going on down there. So, but it was truly transformative. And then in college, we got to see Evil Dead 2. And that was one where I was like, this is not the same thing as the other thing, but I really like this thing. And the idea that this is also Sam Raimi and this is also kind of part of the Evil Dead universe, I was just like, you can't do that. And in the same way that when Army of Darkness came out, like, you can't do that either. And Sam Raimi just decides he's going to make whatever goddamn Evil Dead he feels like making. And hopefully one of them will resonate with one of you or all of you. It's been very exciting, again, going back to these because they're ones that I've seen many, many times. It was nice going back to seeing some of the more recent ones. I just recently saw the first season of Ash vs. Evil Dead and enjoyed that a heck of a lot more than I ever expected to. So let's go back to the beginning. We're in a little cabin in Tennessee, these kids from Michigan, and they're making history, and they don't even know it. Basically, the setup is we got 5 college students, one of whom is Ash, aka Bruce Campbell. They uncover a book and a recording down in the basement, and that unleashes the Evil Dead. We see transformations. We see things like pencils getting jammed into ankles. It is truly one of the movies that just feels like it's just poking you in the same way that Sam Raimi likes to poke Bruce Campbell and his twisted ankles and stuff like that. What are some people's favorite moments? I'm just going to start there. Like what is it about this movie, Evil Dead, that continues to kind of come up for you? When you think of Evil Dead, what is the first thing that comes to mind?
I love the DIY nature of this movie. Like, it's so homemade. Like you said, like it's just gooey, right? Like, there's not a stitch of realism in any of the violent scenes. It's like, you know, like Play-Doh, like whatever scraps they could find or something, you know, like, not to say that there's no care put into it, but it's literally like, okay, we have like $10,000, you know, like sourced from our dentist. Let's see what we can do, right? Like, and it's brilliant. I think in anyone else's hands, it would have come across as hokey or cheap or something, but there's some madcap thing, some magic that Raimi possesses that, like, when you see it on screen, it just adds this otherworldly nature to it and makes it that much more like upsetting. It's like, this shouldn't look real, but it looks real, but it doesn't look real. And then, like, none of the sound design makes sense. It's like just insanity, but it's so believable. I have no idea how he was able to do that. It should have been like just shit, but it's so good. And I just love the, you know, like the very hands-on nature of it, like the camera movements. If you've read Bruce Campbell's book, If Chins Could Kill, he kind of gives away a lot of this. Like, we literally like glued a camera to a 2x4 and had 2 guys running through the woods. And
The
it
shaky
looked,
cam.
yeah, and it looks great. Rigged like another, like a pulley system and a 2x4, and, you know, stuck Cheryl to it, and like just had somebody like just pulling levers and like making it look like she's flying. And I love everything about that.
Christy, how about you?
So I'm going to go back to my original feeling the first time I saw it. And I'd been watching horror for 10 years by then. And I felt, I'm old hat. I can predict whatever's happening in these movies. It's one of the first movies I remember watching where everything surprised me. Everything was interesting. I could not predict what was happening next. And oh my God, it just blew me away. I think that's why I fell in love with it so much. I really loved the sound design. I loved the just the shots. That's what made me fall in love with him. Like going over the beams, you know, the woo woo woo, the walking, Ted Raimi's legs, you know, walking actually on there. And then, you know, funny enough, yes, when I read If Chins Could Kill, and when I read The Unseen Force by Kenneth Muir, just to know everything that they did behind the scenes to make that film. And it still blows me away to this day. And I have this dream of like meeting Sam Raimi someday and like gushing the same things that every other, you know, person in the world has. But I need that moment in my life to thank him, because he's totally my filmmaking hero. I love that guy.
Jen and Ryan, what are some things that make Evil Dead special?
For me, it's definitely the special effects. I've been lucky enough to get to know Tom Sullivan since going to Cinema Wasteland in 2002. I've been hanging out with him and chatting with him over the years, and just some of the stories of like the whiteout eyes used egg whites. Like, I can't even imagine like putting that in your eye, but the sacrifices that those actors went through to create this awesomeness is just amazing. The sound effects also I loved. I mean, something as simple as putting a hook on a chain on a little thing and it's like, you know, I mean, I don't know. I love the sound too.
Like I said, I was in junior high when I saw it, so I was pretty young and obviously still very impressionable, and I hadn't seen a lot of more hardcore stuff. So the moment with the tree obviously was like you said, AC, we stopped and rewound it multiple times because we were like, oh my gosh. The moment when Cheryl starts reciting the cards and she turns and raises up, you know, I mean, why have your way she rolls her head and her eyes, just that way she looked, it was just such an incredible, like, jaw-dropping thing. We just couldn't, and then it just goes off the deep end and batshit crazy with the pencil in the freaking ankle, and when Scotty's chopping up Shelly. I mean, that is just absolutely as grim as it gets when you just see the blood spraying everywhere and the actual axe bit biting into the limbs as he's separating the parts, and you know, and the blood, you know, coming across the camera screen, and just, I mean, it's just such a tour de force of crazy, and just it works. I mean, even the crazy claymation stuff that normally you'd look at it and be like, that's so hokey. It doesn't feel hokey in this movie. It works. It just has this great grimness to it. The atmosphere is so grim and dark, and I just really, really love it. It's so like horrifying. There just really isn't anything else that kind of creates that atmosphere quite like the Evil Dead does. And that to me is just, it's lost none of its power even now. I mean, I've seen it, I don't even know how many times. And every time, like, all the moments, I mean, I can practically quote the films. I'm sure everybody else here can too. When Scotty turns and all of a sudden you have that quick shot where the claw digs in and then it starts slowly ripping down. I mean, it's just endless. There's so many moments, one after another. That
we watched it earlier, right before the podcast, actually, and he was like quoting it nonstop through the whole. Like, I could just sit there and watch him, and he would be like reciting the whole thing to me. So,
I'm a big fan of the authenticity of the relationships that all these people in the cabin, like, you know, you have your sibling, you have your girlfriend, you have that one friend that all your other friends are probably like, why are you friends with that guy who always has a different, you know, girlfriend with him? And for me, it's like, you know, the DIY effects of it, I think, made it more believable. When I was so young, I'm starting to think I think I was younger than I thought I was when I saw it, because to me it was like, you know, college kids were gods, and it was just something that was like, oh my gosh, it's so cool that the story of it is so, like, I think that's probably how it would go down. And the fact that you have these people who are so ill-equipped to deal with any of it, and how quickly all of the deadites happen, and then just how these deadites are just out, they're just out to have a good time. And we have Ashley Williams, who is completely unprepared to deal with any of it and just bumbling and fumbling around. And
I want to take this moment, because I know we'll be talking about Bruce Campbell a lot over the course of the evening, but I want to give a shout out to Ellen Sandweiss as Cheryl, Betsy Baker as Linda, Sarah York as Shelley, and good old Hal Delrick as Scotty.
Which is his fake name, because he was a SAG actor and he did that so that he could do that without getting in trouble. I was lucky enough to meet Ted, Scotty, and the ladies at a flashback weekend, and got some great stories from all of them.
And speaking of SAG actors, Joseph is based in New Zealand and has appeared on Ash versus the Evil Dead, episode 2, season 1. Joseph, tell us some of your favorite moments from the first movie.
It was interesting because I've seen Evil Dead 2 so many, easily 100 times. And I think I had seen Evil Dead 1 once prior to getting ready to do this podcast.
Oh, wow.
And going back to watch it, in my notes, one of the earliest notes I have is, this is such a confident shot list. One of the other early notes I have is, not a single shot is wasted. It is never a point where we're just watching a character travel from point A to point B. If we're traveling from point A to point B, there's going to be something interesting or sideways about this shot. that makes it interesting to watch, or that moves things forward, or that gives us another angle on the plot. And I was really intrigued by how many things that pay off in Evil Dead 2 are in Evil Dead 1. Moments that are basically the same, they're just refined in the second film, but they're absolutely in number 1. And before we started recording, we were talking about why did Raimi end up doing so much work in New Zealand. One of the things I think Raimi really showed in the early Evil Dead installments was maximizing what we can do with what we have. Looking around and going, okay, what have we got? What's the best we can do with that? Absolutely having it pay off. And I think some of my favorite moments are incredibly simple. When the demons start to rise, there's a moment where we're seeing everybody listening to the tape inside, and outside there is a pile of leaves, and it's very simple, just a touch of fog and a red light under the pile of leaves.
Yeah.
And it looks right and it feels right when it happens. There's one moment early on where the Deadites haven't fully arrived, but a tree branch comes through the window. And the timing and the execution of that tree branch, it's literally a jump scare. It really works well. And technically, shove that tree branch through the window, but it works. And it's very artfully done. One of my notes early on was when the storm starts, it's scratch lightning. It is the old timey, we need lightning. So you go in and you scratch the negative. It's beautifully done. It moves so well. It really never feels like it is luxuriating at any point or just killing time. It's always moving things forward, using the camera to reflect someone's mental state. Ash in both 1 and 2 has moments where when the bodies are piling up and really getting aggressive, we have moments of going, is Ash going crazy? Which is a wild thing to think when the world has literally gone crazy. Part of it is chutzpah. You have to admire, a director who goes in knowing exactly what he wants and going to get it. But just technical execution, I think he got the shots he was looking for. I don't think there are many shots that Sam Raimi would look at and go, I wish we could have done more or better.
Well, and because Bruce Campbell ends up becoming kind of our de facto star of the series, but he's not the star of this movie. Sam Raimi is the star of this movie. Sam Raimi comes out of this movie and everybody goes, who is this guy who made this movie with these clearly young, inexperienced actors who are working their way through this? He is so confident with it. He knows how to use them in a way that it works.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I keep coming back to is Sam Raimi comes out of this movie in the same way that Peter Jackson comes out of Bad Taste, where you're like, who is this guy? I don't remember any of the actors' names. I remember Peter Jackson. I remember Sam Raimi. It's like, this person is going to be somebody. And I think everybody recognized it, including Stephen King.
And I think that's something about the franchise, the 2 Evil Dead and Evil Dead Rise, is they really do a great job at keeping the tension. You feel that those characters probably never get to realize the PTSD they have, because as soon as they leave that area, the Deadites are probably going to always be there. And it's just always go, 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 which is exciting.
One thing that I think, though, I agree with your assessment of how Sam Raimi is the star of the show, but I think he also does a fantastic job of getting the actors, and the actors themselves do a fantastic job of creating such memorable characters. I mean, all of them. It's a very small cast, obviously, but you remember all of them. Bruce Campbell obviously is kind of shines a little bit more, but I really think that everybody else pulls their own and pulls their weight, and they're very memorable. I mean, Ellen Sandwich is fantastic in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, Betsy Baker, I mean, all of them, they all do really great. Yeah. I mean, her sitting there cackling like a maniac like that, I mean, it's so creepy. It you look at how her face is done up and it's really kind of clownish, but it's not. It's eerie. It's creepy. It's really grim. especially with that maniacal cackle that she has. You may not know their names when you walk out of it, but you definitely remember each character and who they are.
I was just thinking about all of the, the behind the scenes of it, because that's what I got very obsessed with once I watched the film and I was learning more about it. And just that, they were living in a house offset. Like literally all they did was go to the house, barely eat because they were all broke. And Tom would be in the back, laundry room or mud room, chicken bones, making the Kandarian dagger. And then they'd go back and work, and they were all miserable. And just seeing how it all played out on screen is really interesting. And another thing that I always found interesting is that, obviously, if anybody's familiar with the Video Nasties scandal in the UK, why the Evil Dead was part of that, I don't know. I didn't 100% get it, because in any reality, who would think that was going to inspire mayhem? I don't know, whatever. The whole Video Nasty scandal was a mystery to me in general, but I was just thinking about how the Evil Dead was involved in that, and imagine Sam Raimi being put on trial for his obscenity.
I mean, the level of violence is pretty extreme and unprecedented in that film, so I think that would be enough to set off any censors, because that's why they changed the blood from what it was in Evil Dead 2 in an attempt to try not to get an X rating. Because the first one, when you see him chopping up Shelley, like I said, that is extreme as extreme as it gets. So I can see why the British censor has been like, none of that.
It's funny. It's extreme, but it's also extremely goofy. Like when Scotty hits her with the axe.
Oh yeah.
She just goes down like the puppet she is. I'm like, that's hilarious. And nobody thinks that was actually an actor getting hit. We all go, well, that was fun. That was a puppet. And you have the blood literally running down the screen because, that was what one of their potential distributors had to offer. It was like, you got to make a horror film. You got to have the blood running down the screen. And so he's like, okay, well, let's take that to heart.
You're kind of saying that, and this is true, it's both, right? It's both horrific and comedic at the same time. And I think that's such a testament to Raimi's sensibilities in terms of filmmaking and how much comedy has influenced his style too. Yeah. I'm sure we'll talk about the Three Stooges throughout this entire conversation, but that economy of filmmaking and that old school, like Joseph was saying, with the scratch lightning and that classic sensibility so shines through here, but it's so whimsical and disturbing at the same time. Raimi really comes out as the big star because he has right out of the gate for this feature film has that very distinct sensibility. Nobody else could make a movie like he did. And I think that's still the case to this day. I think he's managed to hang on to that, even in doing, some of these giant multi-million-dollar blockbuster films. He's never lost his sensibility. Maybe softened a bit because some studio suit tells him, but for the most part, you can always identify him, and it's so cool.
And you can tell that this is somebody who is trying to impress. I like the fact that he's making that extra effort to do things to call attention to the film. And I think he's also doing it in a way that he's doing horrible things, but he's also doing it with a sense of fun.
It's whimsical.
Yeah, there's a director here that's like, I'm having a great time. I hope you're having a great time watching it.
He's doing it to impress himself too.
Yes.
What can I do that I've never seen before? And by God, he goes for it.
The predecessor to The Evil Dead was the short. It's not fantastic, but it shows that he knows the form. And I think what he is beautiful about Evil Dead is he knows exactly what his audience is expecting and telegraphs, I know what you're expecting. I'm going to give it to you, but I'm going to surprise you anyway. I'm going to give you exactly what you expect, and I'm still going to come in from the left and make you jump or make you laugh.
Such a great sense of humor. I'm even thinking about how he knew to put ambulances outside theaters. It was the whimsical. I just love that word. It permeates everything.
Because I think you do have to talk about Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 kind of in the same breath, because you're getting to see who the Sam Raimi guy is. Oh, if we give him a little bit more money, then what happens? Well, he remakes his movie and then does it one better. I remember watching, I'm like, Evil Dead 2, it's the same movie. You can't just do the same movie again. But again, going against all odds, he makes it work. And Joseph, like this being like the movie that you've seen a zillion times, and having just come back to Evil Dead, how does it feel like kind of like living with those two films ostensibly connected, but clearly two different beasts?
It's very, very strange going back to the first one, because the thing you come back to when you watch Evil Dead 2 is, wait, are we meant to interpret that the Ash character is coming back to the cabin? Because that's weird if that's the situation, because of course the ending of Evil Dead 1 is him being, confronted with the growler that's just punched its way through the cabin, and that's the last shot of 1, so presumably he was taken over by the Deadites. And here we are at the top of 2, and it's as if Ash doesn't know what's going on at the cabin, but he's got the same name, and there's this same necklace that he gave to the first girl that now he's giving to the second girl. It's a very bold move, and I don't think it works too hard to reconcile the differences. It kind of a sequel, kind of a remake, kind of we don't care whether it's one or the other.
Evil Dead 2's beginning is almost kind of a de facto recap of the first movie, but he leaves out everybody except for Linda, and that, which is kind of weird and wild, because it's kind of what you see is that it's like it recaps what happened in the first movie and literally goes up to the last shot of the movie, and then to me is when Evil Dead 2 truly starts. Is the moment that he turns around, and then you see him flying through the trees, getting hit by the stuff, and he crashes into the thing, and he's possessed. But then the sun comes up, and it just happens to be his lucky day that he's able to get back to being Ash. And then we kind of see the story move forward from the events of the first film. That's kind of how I've always taken it. Weird recap, but yet they just, for whatever reason, decide to eliminate the other 3 characters.
A weird recap where they lie to us and say, no, you didn't see that before. It was something completely different.
It was a nightmare.
My buddy Guillermo del Toro actually references that shot where Bruce Campbell is a Deadite and pops up out of the puddle, but it's daylight and his eyes clear. Fangoria magazine had told everyone, you need to go see this movie. Guillermo del Toro, James Cameron, Quentin Tarantino, all of them reference, everybody in our circle was telling us we had to go see this film, and we did, and it changed the way that we made movies. But Del Toro talks about that specific shot of the close-up of the eyeball getting cleared, and he said it's the simplest thing in the world. It is a puppet eyeball that has that white fluid injected into it, and then they run it backwards, and the eyeball goes clear. And he's like, it was so simple but so effective, and I've carried it forward in the rest of my work.
How do people feel about kind of Evil Dead 2 being Evil Dead 2?
I loved it. There was more gore, which I was like, yeah. I mean, it was my first introduction to Evil Dead, though. So seeing it, I was like, this is just off the charts with the gore. This is like the goriest movie I've ever seen up to that point. I loved the gore. I loved that it was multicolored blood. And when I found out why, I thought that was even more brilliant. Crazy Henrietta.
That's like top 3 Ted Raimi performances for me. And if you know me, you know that I'm like, I love Ted. Like, I've had a crush on him for ever. Like, that whole setup is just beautiful and brilliant, and like he plays that like to the hilt, despite the fact that he's like rigged up in some like crotch pinching get up and like wearing this like horrible sweaty fat suit. He looks like he's having the time of his life anyways. It's so good. As gorier as Evil Dead 2 is, like he ramps up the comedy just as much in this, and really like, okay, we're really doing the stooge stuff now. Like, we're just gonna get completely out of control with it. And that whole sequence where like the house is laughing at him It is that's such a great sequence, and it doesn't feel out of place. Again, I think if any other director tried that, it would be like, what the hell is this guy doing? Like, that's stupid. It fits here. It fits so well. And I love that it was the inspiration for the George Harrison video, I've Got My Mind Set on You. I love that this movie inspired that music video. Like, it's like two of my worlds coming together. I enjoy it so much. I love like the cast additions in it too. Like getting Danny Hicks in there is great.
Yeah.
It's so good. I love that it sort of like retcons the first film and does this great sleight of hand. You kind of mentioned it, like what you thought you saw, you didn't really, just kidding. This is the canon now. It's economical though. It goes back to that economy of storytelling that Raimi is really good at. Like, we're going to just pare it down to the absolute basics. And then, you know, also have like a skeleton ballet scene, because why not?
I love that it's a film that can, I think, is a continuation and a standalone at the same time, which, hey, that's a phenomenal feat. Because I agree, like, if you do continuation, it's right when he's possessed and then everything happens. But for me, the second one is, I feel, where you get the silhouette of Ash Williams becoming this iconic character that I think everyone even knows just from the silhouette. And I love how this one introduces, you have Ash Williams, who's just murdered people, gets caught in the act. And then the movie proceeds from there about, he's our hero. People think he's insane. And here he is having to prove, no, please believe me. This is all real. I'm here we got to do this together.
I think we would be remiss if we didn't call out Bruce Campbell's fighting his own hand.
Oh no, we
as
have
an actor, that scene inspires me as much as Laurence Olivier ever did.
And that's what I was just going to say, is that Bruce Campbell is the star of this movie. We get to see this guy and we're like, nobody does Bruce Campbell like Bruce Campbell.
Yeah.
And he is unlike anything we've ever seen before. You know, he has this kind of like heroic quality that he doesn't have in the first one. Like this one, he really is coming into his own.
Yep.
And we see him as both a goof and a hero.
Yeah.
And that's a really amazing thing that he manages to blend together. But yes, him fighting his own hand and then cutting it off is just, and then him like going, I'm going to put a chainsaw in place of that hand.
Yep.
You're like, it just goes and goes and goes. And you're like,
groovy.
And it's groovy.
I mean, after the whole sequence, when they show him do that, and he puts it on, it's all the sound effects. And he just looks at the camera, groovy. It's, I mean, it's perfect.
Yeah.
I love that like Raimi is paying homage to things that he loves. And he's also sending up things. I mean, like that feels like a riff on the Rambo sequence where he's suiting up. Like that's his version of that. It just transforms what we thought a movie could be, and yet doesn't take anything away from the original film. You know, the original film still feels authentic to itself, and this film feels authentic to itself. It doesn't feel like it's making fun of what he did before or apologizing for it even.
No.
He's like, that's what we did. Here's what I'm doing now. And then he does Army of Darkness. Okay, thank you, Anna. I'm like, I don't know what the disposition for this film is, but it's one of those where I know I went to see it in the theater, having seen Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 on video. And I'm like, oh my God, I finally get to see a Sam Raimi film. And I'd already seen Darkman. That was not the Sam Raimi film I was waiting for. But Army of Darkness, that was going to be the Sam Raimi film I was waiting for. It just doesn't, as I said in response to Anna, it doesn't feel like it's an Evil Dead movie. It feels like it's its own thing. And I think if you take it on its own terms, it's enjoyable for what it is. Anna, I know what you feel because it was part of your introduction. How do you think it fits into the universe of the Evil Dead?
I don't know. I guess it takes it to its illogical conclusion. Like it to me, it makes sense, not thematically so much, but we've positioned Ash as this hero now, and like this really charismatic but also an asshole kind of hero. So let's put him in a situation that's going to really like, how can we test this? Like, how can we push that to its limit and to his limits too? Then like in Army of Darkness, we've seen this like heroic character come forth in Evil Dead 2. And then when it gets to Army of Darkness, it's like, he's actually not like, like he can't remember 3 words. Like he's got 2 out of 3, but he can't remember the 3rd one. So he just like, like coughs his way through it and then looks around like, good enough, grabs the book, and all hell breaks loose. Like, and he kind of sucks, which is great. To me, it follows the character. I think that's the most important thing, is that it takes this character to strange new places, and it's wonderful. And I love that you can tell, like, okay, we've given Raimi a bigger budget. To him, this is like fuck you money, probably, because when you're working with like nickels and dimes, and then like now we're going to give you 7 figures, but it's bigger money. And Dino De Laurentiis is behind it, which is such a great, seeing his name in the opening is just hilarious and wonderful. He really utilizes that, but it still has that sheen of cheapness that carries through all of them. I think that's also the other like linking factor, is that even though he had a bigger budget, it still feels pretty low budget. But he makes the best of it. I love it. I feel like it feels, these all 3 connect, but I also I get that it doesn't.
I think it does, but I get that it doesn't. That's a quote, everybody. Ryan, how about you?
With Evil Dead, I mean, I remember reading in Fangoria about Army of Darkness before it came out. And like you, AC, I was super excited because I had such a big, I was such a big fan of the first 2 movies. And so I was just stoked as hell to go see it. I mean, I went opening weekend, but some of the comments that were made in the Fangoria article kind of gave me some pause, where I was like, it just felt like they were trying to tone down the horror, and they were trying to do things. I mean, they literally changed it to Army of Darkness because they knew that the Evil Dead carried such a bad connotation with it, because they went out X-rated. They both had, this notorious thing about them. So he was really trying to kind of make an Evil Dead, kind of have his cake and eat it, make an Evil Dead movie, but not make an Evil Dead movie at the same time. So giving it something that was palatable. So when I saw it in the theater for the first time, I came out of it massively disappointed. I was really bummed. I love Evil Dead 2, but if I had one small knock on it, is that I don't care for the comedy being introduced. I think it works and it's great, but I like the seriousness of the first film. So for me, that's where I prefer that. But Evil Dead 2, I don't mean that to be that I don't love it and it's not a fantastic film. It's just a tiny bit lower because the comedy, I usually prefer more straight horror. And then you get to Army of Darkness and there's almost no horror in it at all. It's there, but it is so toned back so much in favor of the comedy that to me, it kind of was a defanged version of Evil Dead. So that was disappointing. But like AC, when I was able to, in subsequent watchings, going back to it and kind of putting my expectations away and just taking the film for what it is, I've come around to really love it. I mean, I really do find it's a great, entertaining adventure story. I mean, obviously Ash is phenomenal. The character, there's so many great things, so many great moments. I mean, it's just a ton of fun all around. And I do feel that it does connect with the other 2 movies and it belongs. I mean, for me, will always be the weakest movie, even overall. I like the 2 later films more. But and that's where I feel that Ash versus Evil Dead was such a great revelation, because they kind of get it right, where they take the comedy and they keep that, but they don't forget the fact that it's Evil Dead, and they bring back the horror and they bring it back, with gusto. These days now, I do enjoy Army of Darkness for what it is. I mean, I know people that still hate it as much because they're stuck in when they saw it in 92 and were disappointed, which is unfortunate, because it is a really great, entertaining entry into the series.
Jen, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm the type of fan, I just go along for the ride. Like, I enjoyed the heck out of the movie. It was funny. I loved it. As a sequel to like the more serious of the Evil Dead and that, it's okay. I mean, I was kind of disappointed with that, but I still loved it. Like I said, I just go along for the ride, and it was quite the ride. It was hilarious. It was fun. It's even a movie that like my dad and my mom love watching, I mean, getting a phone call like, have you seen this movie? They're like in a windmill and there's these little guys running around attacking this big guy. And I'm like, oh my God, are you really watching that? That's awesome.
Daniel.
Yeah, I have two things. One, I don't know if I'll be able to explain, but maybe one of you can be like, oh my gosh, I know exactly what you mean and can articulate it better. But something about Army of Darkness, every time I watch it, it reminds me of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies, the live action ones. And I have no idea why, but it's like that word
When they go back
whimsy
in time.
again. That one especially going back in time and the sets and like the way it's filmed. It's very tongue in cheek, but it's very, stakes are high. But our heroes now are more untouchables than anything else. So it's really more of a fun side quest journey, is one thing. And the other thing that always comes to my mind for Army of Darkness in, all the campaigns I've played in Dungeons and Dragons, every dungeon master uses Army of Darkness as an example for how you can have dexterity when you're on the ground. And I think that's a testament to Bruce Campbell as well. And it's a perfect example of how you can dodge things really, really well when you're on your back.
Love it. I think it's a good time to point out that Bruce Campbell, as he has demonstrated with Evil Dead 2, is an incredible physical performer. And we get to see him, Joseph and several people on this panel are actors and have done stage combat and things like that. And watching Army of Darkness, I was like, Bruce Campbell is killing it out there. Like, he really is using his, weaponry. He's using all of his physicality, and it's really a terrific performance. And he leans into what will become his de facto character, which is that kind of lovable asshole. Like, he isn't quite that bad in Evil Dead 2, but he leans way into it by the time we get to this film and other subsequent Bruce Campbell films and convention appearances. Is he just kind of becomes that guy who's just kind of a dick, but he can make fun of you and you're okay with it.
Yeah.
Right.
He's had a hard life between those three movies. Again, there's no break between 1, 2, and 3 there.
Joseph, thoughts on Army of Darkness?
Yeah, I think just to speak to Ash and Bruce Campbell, I think there was a very wise director, gentleman who was trained in Commedia dell'arte and physical comedy, and he said, the thing you need to remember is clowns are indestructible. If you establish that fact with an audience, the audience will be okay with putting that character through all kinds of hell, because they know that even if they get squashed flat like Wile E. Coyote, they're gonna bounce back up again. And I think one of the things that we love about Ash is Ash will never have a 100% win, and he will never have a 100% loss. Even when he thinks he's on the top of the world and he's put everybody, he's gotten one over on someone. No, he really hasn't. And when you think he's done for, he will absolutely crawl out of the hole with, a chainsaw on his arm. Army of Darkness for me feels like it was a disappointment because it felt like the first compromise film. The Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2, 100% the movie the director wanted to make. And Army of Darkness feels most of the way through like he's playing to the gallery and to the producers. We're going to make choices because we're trying to loop in an audience that we've never had before. So there are things we're not going to do. We're going to include elements that I probably wouldn't normally include, but there are audience members out there who have never seen it. And, it's wonderful to see a character that we've grown close to do more of the things that we love seeing that character do. I feel in a lot of ways like Army of Darkness has 1 hour's worth of material spread out over an hour and a half. It's the first film of the three where I felt like we were meandering. The other two, I feel like they start in one place and they drive to the end. And Army of Darkness, there are sequences in it where I go, we're just killing time here, aren't we? We're showing the same thing from multiple angles.
Joseph, I want to just maybe throw out what you feel is meandering, I feel is perhaps indulgent. Like this is somebody who's getting an opportunity to do all the things that he wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's got the power of an Evil Dead franchise behind him. So it allows him to make his Harryhausen movie. It allows him to make his medieval movie. It allows him to do all of these things. It's interesting because I don't feel like there's any compromise. And in some ways, I wish somebody had been leaning over his shoulder and going, maybe not in this movie, maybe another movie we can put that in. But I feel like Sam Raimi is like, no way, I'm putting it all in there. And I feel like this feels like unfiltered Sam Raimi in the same way that Evil Dead feels like unfiltered Sam Raimi. And in the same way that Evil Dead 2 feels like unfiltered Sam Raimi. It's just we're getting to see these different facets of the Sam Raimi that he wants to be. We haven't seen him go back to that Evil Dead kind of rawness ever again. Mm-hmm. We do see him leaning into the comedy. But if you've looked at his range of films over the years, he isn't somebody you're going to put in a box. What he is somebody who's a really great director who knows how to play to the material. That's kind of what as I was watching it this time, I was like, somebody stop this guy, because he's gonna put it all in there. But it felt like, no, this is the movie Sam Raimi wanted to make.
And to possibly split the difference, I think some of that has to do with Raimi's editing of his own material. There are moments in Evil Dead 1 and 2 where I go, that was exactly the right length.
Yep.
And there are moments in Army of Darkness where I go, Sam, I know that you love that you're doing your Harryhausen skeletons. It's too long. This needs to be cut, whether that's him or whether that's another voice outside of him saying that. It was too long when I was watching.
Well, something that Joseph, that's interesting to me about that is you have the first two are in one location, a cabin. Even in the remakes, they're really one location. And then this one, it's so open.
Yeah.
And I think, maybe that's why Ash versus Evil Dead might work is because it's TV series. So we do have the opportunity to go places. Like, I agree with you. Like the first two and even the remakes feel so tight. And I'm wondering if it is that there is less travel time for character to get from point A to point B, and how do we fill that now?
I found Army of Darkness because of moving out on my own for the first time. I was 19. I got a job running a 1-hour photo lab at a Kmart. I'm not just saying that, I'm legit. And you had to wear like a white lab coat, and I would always wear horror t-shirts under mine because I'm a rebel, I'm 19, cool. And I'm in the break room one day, I've got it off, I'm wearing an Evil Dead shirt, and this guy's like, oh, you like Evil Dead? What do you like? Army of Darkness? It's my favorite. I was like, what are you talking about? Army of Darkness? And he, shaming me like, what? You love Evil Dead, but you don't know Army of Darkness? And the next day he presented me with an Anchor Bay VHS copy of it. And I took it home and I watched it. And I remember loving it at the time, but I think that's because I'm such a hardcore Sam Raimi fan. As I've aged, I don't love it the same way, but when I watch it, it's unabashed Sam. Like, that's Sam 1,000,000%. That's him. I mean, two of his favorite films are Equinox and Treasure of the Sierra Madre, right? And I see it, I can feel a little bit of both of those in there. It's my boyfriend's favorite of the series, but he's also a D&D nerd, and he's more into fantasy. And I'm like a slasher nerd, so I'm like, give me the gore, give me the gore. It's definitely Sam. It is my least favorite of the trilogy. But again, I think that's just because it goes against my horror sensibilities. It's not horror to me. It's fantasy. But again, it's Sam, and I love that for him.
It was originally going to be called Medieval Dead. I always thought Medieval Dead was a great title, and it's kind of a bummer that was not the title that was used. But I understand it, in hindsight.
The logo of Evil Dead, like, that's also something that's incredibly iconic. I was just directing a production of The Crucible, and when the girls are acting possessed, the image I said to the designers was, well, with lighting, I'm looking for that Evil Dead moment of the hand reaching out.
One of my favorite poster arts of all time. Top 3: Evil Dead, Jaws, and the monster art from Humanoids from the Deep.
Yep. Let's lean into our revival. We have the 2013 Evil Dead remake directed by Fede Alvarez. It's the first time we haven't had Sam at the helm of an Evil Dead movie. And I know there was some trepidation when they were talking about remaking, because this is 2013. Every freaking thing we love is being remade, and oftentimes not in a good way. I was at South by Southwest that year, and so I got to see one of the premiere screenings of it. And I remember we were all real happy with it. Like, we came out of that going, wow, that was awesome. That was what an Evil Dead remake could be. And it doesn't feel like it's diminishing what came before. It feels like, you know what, we're going to go back to the roots. It's not going to be jokey. That's enough of me. What are people's thoughts about the 2013 remake? Christy, let's kick things off with you.
I went into it. I can't say I went in, I wasn't gatekeeping, right? But I didn't go in with an open mind. I went in thinking, this is never going to be like the Evil Dead. Like, this is not going to compare. And true enough, when I got out, I hated it because I'm like, well, this isn't my Evil Dead. Then a year or two later at Texas Frightmare, I met Lou Taylor Pucci. I ended up doing a panel with him and Chris Marquette, a bunch of young horror guys in like the biggest remake franchises and things like that. And he asked me, "Oh, so did you like it?" And I was honest. I was like, "Listen, yeah, your performance was great. I understood what you guys were doing. I don't know, maybe I need to give it another shot." And I did. And going back and watching it with just a clean slate, I did like it more. And I watched it again the other day, and I said to myself, I'm like, this is not a bad movie. In fact, it is quite scary. The effects, especially just some of the gory visages. It was just, it's awesome. And I regret, in my late 20s, early 30s, again, maybe I wasn't as open-minded. The older I get, the more I'm open to those things. And I really can't stand people who say things like, oh, yeah, that remake, it ruined my childhood. Like, okay. Anyways.
Joseph.
Yeah.
You don't like horror movies.
I don't. This is the only one of these Evil Dead movies that made me actively angry. And I did not enjoy it. First of all, I should preface it with the phenomenon is something that I refer to as the bagel donut switcheroo. For years, Sam Raimi has been providing us with delicious bagels. There was the original plain bagel and the poppy seed and then the everything bagel. And the everything bagel was a little much maybe, but it had the elements of the plain bagel and the poppy seed. Then he stopped making them for a while, and we knew that because he was a busy man, but boy, the original bagels were good. And then they told us we're remaking the bagels, and we all got excited. And then I went in and I said, I'd like the bagel, please. And they handed me a donut. And I said, this is not a bagel, this is a donut. And they said, no, it's a reimagined bagel. And I said, I know donuts and I know bagels, and this is clearly a donut. All of that is to say, the things that I enjoyed about the Evil Dead over the years were its sense of humor and knowledge of the genre and a very strong directorial vision. I don't love gore, and gore is what Evil Dead 2013 has going for it. So if you're not on board with gore, it's not a great watch for you. I think Fede Alvarez, I am looking forward to his next 3 films. I thought his direction in this was fine, but certainly not as confident a hand as Raimi. Interesting inside baseball, in the first 5 minutes of the film, I found out there are 2 actors that I've worked with before. In fact, the gentleman who immolates his daughter is someone I worked with on a regular basis. He's a very sweet actor, Canadian, named Jim McClarity. Sweet, despite the fact that he burns his own daughter. And I found that prologue to be the most interesting part of the movie to me, because it set up the convention. Oh, wait, here's a group of people who know what Deadites are, know how to deal with them, and that's going to be our jumping off point along the lines of an Aliens type situation. And instead, we went backwards and rehashed the plot of the first film. That said, taking to put the cart before the horse, Evil Dead, Evil Dead Rise, Evil Dead Burn. I do really appreciate the fact that Raimi and Campbell and Tappert are giving young directors a shot at the franchise. That feels very incredibly generous and wonderful of them to allow them to do. So I would say it's more on me than on the film itself. I did not enjoy Evil Dead because it's not the type of film that I enjoy, but there were certain Easter eggs for me personally in it, in that it was made in New Zealand and there were people I know and love in it, including the makeup and prosthetic person who made me a dead person for another project.
Daniel.
I was really excited for it because I was big into Evil Dead, and I still really like it, but it was not the movie I was expecting to go into seeing. I love that analogy Joseph gave, but I will say, I love all the Saw movies. I've seen all them. This movie made me cringe more than any of them did. Like times where this is a movie where I actively found myself actually pulling away when you see in trailers for horror movies when they're like, this is scary, those reaction shots. It's the one time I really have felt that way watching a movie.
Jen.
So I'm kind of like Christy. When I went in, I was like, oh my God, this is going to be horrible. It's not going to be the original. And then when I saw it, I liked it. I loved the gore because I am a gore hound like that. But to me, I don't like to think of it as a reimagining or a redo in itself. I like to think of it as a continuation. In the original, they rented that cabin. So I like to think of it as these kids, it's obvious it's in their family, that cabin's in their family, and they might have been the original owners of the cabin coming back to their summer cabin kind of thing. I don't know. In my head, I kind of justify it as a continuation of the story.
And Ryan?
Well, for me, I mean, obviously when I first heard about it, I was skeptical, but when I saw the trailer, I was like, because for me, when I hear about remakes, I'm always like, okay, I don't know. I try to not let myself have preconceived notions. I want to see the trailer first and see what that does for me. With Evil Dead, it was like, it just looked interesting and good, and it looked like they were going back to what for me was missing and I wanted, and that was the horror. And like my wife, I am a massive gore hound. I love that stuff. And I also believe that had they not marketed it necessarily as a remake, but as another tale in there, because the thing that's funny to me is, yes, there are a lot of direct scenes and ideas and nods back to the original in the movie. Absolutely. But you got the car there. You got Ash showing up at the end of the movie and the end of the credits, which suggests that everything still exists, and this story exists within the Evil Dead universe as well. So to me, it's kind of like, and I feel the same way about the 03 Chainsaw movie. It was a terrible idea to market that as a remake. If they would have said it's another story of the kids running afoul, people would have loved that movie. Because I know so many people that have gone back and watched it now, and they're like, they divorce themselves from the expectations and they love it. And that, for me, I loved it right out of the gate. Getting back to the Evil Dead, that's the thing with this movie, is that it returned to what I wanted. It was grim, it was dark, it was very, very intense. I mean, the effects are phenomenal. The creatures look so cool. And if you haven't seen it, I strongly recommend the unrated cut, because that's 6 minutes added back in. A lot of it is violence. So, I mean, for Joseph, it might not make that much of a difference, but it does really make the movie even that much better because it is so grim. I mean, the sequence when his girlfriend's got the nails in her face and her limbs are coming off and all that stuff. I mean, it is just absolutely just over the top and awesome, like the way the original Evil Dead was to me. And it was, I mean, you got the Eric character who just gets the freaking shit beat out of him. I mean, that guy just suffers so horribly throughout the course of the movie till he's finally gone. I mean, it's like, oh my God. I mean, just everything about it. To me, I thought it was done well. I mean, the brilliance of having Mia be a junkie and have it be where she's going through withdrawal. So that's why nobody listens. Nobody believes what she's seeing when she's really, in fact, seeing what's going on, but they're not believing it because they think she's going through withdrawals. I mean, to me, that's just was a great way to tell that story and put little wrinkles in it. But then, like I said, bring it back to what it should be. And that's a horror movie.
Anna?
I don't love it. It does get back to like a horror nature, and that's wonderful, but it's also, there's no joy in this film. Like, there's something very delightful about the original Evil Dead, about 81 Evil Dead. And again, it's that like DIY gung-ho kind of nature behind it that is lost. It's completely lost here. You know, Joseph kind of already put this out there. There's nothing that distinguishes this or distinguishes Alvarez as like a unique director. And I think that's something that's lost. If you're going to make an Evil Dead movie, if it's not Sam Raimi behind the wheel, then it should probably be somebody who is just as visually inventive as he was, not replicating what he's doing, but bringing their own sense of style to it, and something that's so them. And unfortunately, I don't think he does that. To me, just on the surface, it looks like kind of any other horror movie. There's no distinguishing features to it. It has these little touches of, oh, I recognize the car. You know, the one girl is wearing an MC5 shirt. Like, okay, we get that there's a Detroit connection. That's great. Like, but there's no reason for it. There's no other than to make you remember the previous movies. I hate to borrow this phrase, but like, make Evil Dead movies fun again. Like, bring that sense of whimsy and joy back. And this one just doesn't do it for me.
You know, again, seeing it at South by Southwest with a theater full of skeptical folks, I agree that it doesn't necessarily feel like there's a distinctive voice, but I do feel like there is an enthusiasm to make the audience squirm. Like, that's what Fede Alvarez and his team are doing. They're like, how can we make you hurt? And I felt the glee of a filmmaker who was a gorehound at heart and was like, I'm gonna push every button I know how to push. I think that nail gun sequence is one of the best sequences in horror. I'm constantly just like, ow, 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 ow. And I want a movie to do that to me. I want a movie to actually make me feel like, and I've never been shot with a nail gun, so thankfully. But I can imagine exactly any second now.
The night is young.
But that's what I got out of it. I was like, here's somebody who knows that he loves gore, and he knows that horror fans, some of them, love gore. And man, like that shot of her in the rain pouring down, the rain of blood, and she plows that chainsaw into the demon's head. I'm like, the crowd just lit up, and I threw my hands up on my couch just earlier this week. I was like, that's fucking great. So I had a good time in that regard, but I agree. I agree with the folks who don't love it as much as I do, that there are things that made Evil Dead truly special. And I think this remake is special in that it feels like it's doing its best to be true to the spirit of that movie. I feel like its heart is 100% in the right place, and I think it hits most of the beats. Personally, I think it explains itself a little too much. I like that they kind of hang that hook on the addiction story, but there's also a lot of kind of explanation as to why these characters are doing what they're doing. Whereas the first one is just like, no, they're 5 people. They go to a cabin and shit starts going crazy. Like, I'm like, that's cool. I like that. Yeah. So the simplicity of it was something I really enjoyed, and you don't get as much of that here.
It goes back to the economy. Like, by and large, Raimi is a really economical filmmaker, and Alvarez doesn't really carry that same water. I know they're 2 different people, and I totally understand that. You know, they're going to bring different sensibilities and backgrounds to their movies. But yeah, that was something when I rewatched it not too long ago. I was like, you know, there's a lot of like just do it. Just get to the point. Just go, please.
I actually feel a little bad about knocking the movie because Fede Alvarez does a very creditable job, considering that what he had done up to this point was a really popular YouTube short. I mean, that was essentially his career. I think he'd done a couple of other shorts before that. What he produced was amazing, considering that he basically had no resume. That said, my feeling about Evil Dead 2013 was, what if you took the Evil Dead 81 and took out everything that made it special? And just stripped it down to its horror storyline. And, you know, I wanted to say, Dr. AC, about wanting to make the audience squirm. I did find a lot of the dialogue painful. That made me squirm.
I'm not gonna disagree with you there.
Oh, the RN proclaiming she is getting as good a care here as she would be getting in a hospital.
I'm like, I don't know if that's accurate, but okay.
I don't know that that's true.
Are you sure about that? Are you sure about that?
I want to know what hospital that she's been working in, where it's equitable.
It's as good as this cabin
out in the woods.
As good as this cabin in the woods.
That's just
that we're
General
fixing people with duct tape.
the hospital system.
I want to give a quick shout out to Roger Murray, who's our makeup effects guy. Awesome. There's a few things in this one where I agree. Like, I don't think the dialogue is the strong suit. I don't mind the plot in that, you know, we get 3 different endings and we get kind of shifting as to who's going to be our hero. Like, is it going to be Shiloh Fernandez or is it going to be Mia? So I enjoyed most, if not all of it. And when I went back to it, I was worried that it was just the festival feeling, and watching it alone, I'm like, nope, it still holds up. I enjoy it. And now we bring ourselves to Evil Dead Rise. What's the general disposition for this one? Daniel, what's your feeling on this one?
Evil Dead Rise is the only Evil Dead I've gotten to see in the theaters, and I got to see it with a buddy, and we had a fantastic time. Like, the theater we were in, everyone was Evil Dead fans. They were loving it. The theater was actually full. I think we saw it opening weekend. And actually, I think, you know, what Jen brought up with the last one, I thought I loved how this one made it a franchise by bringing up that there are 3 different Necronomicons, and they used Army of Darkness as the example of that. And they even used that. That's why the Necronomicons are different, and that's also why all the movies are different with different directors. And I was like, it's brilliant. I was like, that's a great in-universe way to do that. I love how fun the Deadites were having again, like, you know, looking through the peephole and that little short scene when the mom's wreaking havoc. I thought the kid actors, were pretty great for what this film was. The atmosphere building was great. I had a blast.
Jen.
I loved it. Being a mom, I can't even imagine. Like, oh my God, the hell that those kids go through seeing their mom turn into that and start attacking them and trying to kill them. Like, oh my God. Like, I love the concept of this movie. I loved the dark, grim apartment building they were living in. It was the perfect setting for it. Like, I don't know. I loved it.
Ryan?
This movie is where, like what you said about what Anna said about the 2013 movie, is you have the economy. Lee Cronin, to me, is a much more I think he's a stronger filmmaker with what he does. Is that he doesn't waste time with the story and getting things going, and there's not a lot of wasted shots and things that happen. Everything is, you know, hurtling forward. I think that his casting is absolutely phenomenal. Alyssa Sutherland, her performance, I mean, without that, the movie would not work. And the supporting cast is great too. I mean, Lily Sullivan obviously is a fantastic lead, but Alyssa Sutherland's performance she is absolutely phenomenal in both the human version and then when she becomes the Deadite and that. And I mean, I think that the throwbacks to the other movies is well done. I mean, obviously, once again, the gore is on 20, and it's done really, really well. I just love the atmosphere. I mean, you know, I know people have said, well, it's kind of like a Demons 2, and I'm like, that's okay. I've never seen another movie like Demons 2, and if you're going to compare it to that, that's fine because of it being in there. It works. It's done well. I mean, the possession stuff, it all has a great power to it, and each impact of the character beats and when they're transformed and the kids are, you know, when they become possessed. I mean, it's just, to me, the execution is just excellent from start to finish. The 2013 film was good, and this takes it to the next level beyond that. Absolutely. I really loved it. Really, really loved it. And a fun tidbit is that we took our oldest son. It was the first R-rated movie he got to see in the theater. We took him to see that. We showed him the first Evil Dead 1. He had seen Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness before, but hadn't seen the 81 film or the 13 film. So we had a little sit down and watched the first two back to back. Then we took him to see Rise, and he loved it. Absolutely. So yeah, it was absolutely phenomenal. I really loved it. In fact, I mentioned I got the 4K special edition that Arrow's putting up, and I waited because the original disc that came out had nothing on it. I was very frustrated because it was like, how do you put out, there's literally nothing on the movie. So I was like, I can stream it until I knew there would be a special edition coming out, and Arrow, bless their hearts, delivered the goods. And it's a phenomenal disc. If you like the movie, make sure you buy it because it's awesome.
Lots of supplements and things like that.
Oh yeah, and they're great. The supplements are really,
stuff.
really good.
We watched it.
Yeah, we plowed through it all. It's fantastic. So
perfect. Thank you. Anna.
Not a fan.
Yes.
I'm so sorry to be like and let me bring everybody way back down. I appreciated that they broke out of the cabin setting. Okay, this is great. Like, we're going to get this whole new setting. I was so hoping that we would get like more of that. And it still felt like contained. It was oddly contained to like primarily the apartment and then like the garage a little bit, and that was about it. And I'm like, I wanted it to like just bust this thing wide open, and really like kind of unleash hell on the city. That to me would have been great, but I don't want to complain about stuff that's not in a film. I think the cast is excellent here. I will give it that. I love the economy of this as well. It doesn't really like fart around at any point. It gets the job done. I do think it pulls its punches with the kids. Like anytime you see the little girl and the aunt together, it kind of telegraphs like, we know who's going to end up being like, they're going to survive. It'll be fine. To me, it didn't feel like there was a real sense of danger when the little girl was involved. Not that I want to see kids in peril, but if you're going to put kids in peril, fucking do it. You know, we're at a point where we're well past the days of John Carpenter shooting a kid holding an ice cream cone. Okay. And this one, I feel like it reserves itself a little bit, which is weird because it's Evil Dead. Like, everybody should be up for grabs. Little Kid Deadite would have been fucking rad. Maybe Burn will have that. I don't know. This one didn't really set well with me. I also kind of didn't like the motherhood aspect, and like there's sort of this pious nature of like mother is God type of thing, and like we're with the sister being pregnant, like we're gonna force this character into motherhood, and that may not be the thing for her. I don't know, it just felt odd to her character. Felt like a guy writing what he thought a woman should do. That's me bringing myself to it too. I think I need to give it like 5 years and then maybe watch it again. And I might have either a better appreciation or a different appreciation for it. But this one just kind of was like super hit or miss. I love though that the newer Evil Dead movies do really go for the practical effects.
Yep.
As much as possible. I love that they maintain that spirit in a world where everything can be CGI'd, everything can be done digital. I love that aspect of these at the very least. Like, we're going to get buckets of Caro syrup and red food coloring and whatever bits and bobs we could find. That's great. So I will say that for Evil Dead Rise.
Christy?
I really liked it. I didn't expect to like it as much as I did, but unlike Evil Dead 2013, I went in with no agenda. I just enjoyed it. I just took the ride, and I really dug it. The funny thing is, so obviously you go into an Evil Dead film and you have to have some sort of a suspension of disbelief. But my biggest suspension of disbelief the entire film is that mom could have afforded that apartment with 3 kids, even with her partner. Like, that apartment in any like an hour of Los Angeles. How? That's like $4,000 easy a month. Easy. Okay. Sorry. That's all. That was my suspension of disbelief.
The thing that got me more though was the fact that they dropped the pizza and didn't pick it up and take it, even though it didn't flip over or anything. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
That pizza was still good, and there was multiple ones. I mean,
Yeah.
come on. You
Bridget
can still
dropped
pick
the
that pizza up and
pizza.
bring it back. I mean,
Speaking
that's
of
like,
pizza,
oh my gosh.
Did
I mean, and
anybody-
I'm saying that tongue in cheek, obviously.
did anybody catch it said Henrietta's Pizza on it, on the box?
I did not
Yes.
see that.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
And you got to keep in mind, this is how cinema views Detroit.
Right?
This is RoboCop Detroit.
Yes. I've been to
Joseph,
places like that though in Detroit.
Joseph, what are your thoughts on this one?
Scariest moment in the movie for me, which I thought was underplayed, was being in the middle of an earthquake in an underground parking garage. I'm like, your level of panic is way lower than it needs to be right now. This people should be freaking out way more than they are if you're from LA. But one of the things I treasure about my relationship with you, Aaron, is you make me watch movies that I would never normally watch. And I love you for it, and I hate you for it. And this is one of those where I really did enjoy this one for what it was. It is not a film that I would normally go to see, but it was an Evil Dead installment that felt like it had its sense of humor back and had its writing and its director back. And I thought, shout out to Alyssa Sutherland in this movie as primary demon girl, but also just to go back, Jane Levy in Evil Dead 2013, I think does a pretty damn good job as primary demon girl and deserves a shout. But 2023, there were, I think one of the things that works for a horror movie in terms of a sense of humor is, what do we as an audience know that the characters haven't figured out yet? And how does the director make that tension enjoyable for an audience? And I think Lee Cronin did a fantastic job across the board with, Easter eggs were there for you to enjoy, but we didn't linger over them too long. We touched on Henrietta's Pizza and moved on. Staffany made me laugh, which looked like the dagger. Overall, I think it was a much more successful Evil Dead installment with some good performances and some good gore and good scares.
What you just pointed out, Joseph, is exactly what was hitting me. Having just watched these all in succession, Evil Dead Rise was the last one I watched. I love how lovingly Lee Cronin pays tribute to the original film, but all of the other films as well, including the 2013 one. He's like, I love Evil Dead, and I'm going to get all the Evil Dead in here, and you guys will love this. Like, I was thinking Shakespeare. We're going to take a Shakespeare text and we're going to put it through a different lens. Instead of a cabin, it's an apartment. Instead of a trap door, it's the door with the link on either side of it. We're going to have them talking back and forth. I mean, I was just making this list. I'm looking, we got 5 people in the apartment. Oh, wait, there's 5 people in the cabin. It was just like going down the list of somebody who really did their homework and said, I'm going to impose this concept onto this text, but I'm going to do it so thoroughly that you can't help but just go along with the story, which has really great bones to it. I agree, Christy. I think that, when she says, come get some, I'm like, damn it, that was one bridge too far. That was, Alien Romulus saying, get away from her, you bitch. I'm like, no, don't do it. But the rest of the film is such a brilliant love letter, right up from the opening shots of the unseen force turning into being the drone. Oh, that's good. I'm appreciating it, but I'm also appreciating the spin you put on it. So this is one that I don't think I'd caught all of those homages the first time I saw it, but having watched it at the end of watching all the other ones, man, this is somebody who really did their homework, really cares about these movies. And it's important for them to give their own vision, but also to really say, hey, this is what I love. I love all of these things, and I bet you do too.
One thing that I know I saw in the special features is that the girl in the beginning who rises out of the lake, she's
Yep.
wearing the same dress as the nail gun girl in 2013. And they did that on by design. But the one thing I really wanted to talk about is I absolutely love the design of the book. I thought that was such a cool new addition to it, to have those creepy looking teeth on there to kind of bind it together. I thought that was such a brilliant addition. And then to even go so far as to say there's 3 books and put that out there, that this is why it looks different, because there are different books. And that to me was just such a cool new addition to the mythology.
And Ash's voice was on the record too.
Yeah. And he's also biting the apple. When Alyssa Sutherland bites the guy's eye out, the crunching sound that you hear is Bruce Campbell taking a bite out of an apple.
That's hilarious. I also love that Lee Cronin is like, it's not just the Evil Dead movies. He's touching on The Shining. He's touching on The Thing. This is somebody who loves horror movies and is getting his shot. To your point, Joseph, like the idea that Raimi said, you know what? Let's let this guy, Lee Cronin, who hasn't done a ton of stuff, but let's give him the keys to the kingdom and see what he comes up with. And I really like what he came up with. And yes, I'll give you a call in 5 years, Anna, and we'll say, so what do you think now?
Now what? No, I think I'll be honest, this was the first time that I watched it was in prep for this. And I watched it first to I guess get it out of the way or something. So I watched that. Evil Dead, sorry. Evil Dead 2013, and then did the original trilogy in order. And I think when I go back and rewatch this, I think it's going to be beneficial to start at the start and get the build up to that, to pick up on all of these little touches and nods and things to the prior movies.
Yeah, because what you were saying about you would have liked to seen it explode, I'm kind of like, yes, and this is an Evil Dead movie, so we need to keep it contained, and there's really only one other place, and that's what ends up being the woodshed, which is the parking garage. It's like we're really just dealing with, I just love how well Lee Cronin thought it out.
I was reading a little bit about Evil Dead Burn, and these are French filmmakers that are doing the next one. So I'm really curious to see what kind of sensibility they'll bring to this as well. If it's going to fall in with kind of the French extreme style, which would sort of make sense. I'm curious about it. I'm never not gonna watch an Evil Dead movie. I might wait until the last minute, like I did with Evil Dead Rise, but they're giving it to, again, directors who don't have a lot of history under their belt. They don't have much on their resume. That's great. Keep doing that. Keep giving these young, new, fresh people a chance at this. That's a brilliant thing to do.
We were probably reading the same thing, Anna. The part about Sam and Ivan and Bruce are working on a Bible to give future filmmakers ideas that they have, or things that they would like to see happen. They're sort of their vision for the Evil Dead franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then kind of between Evil Dead 2013 and Evil Dead Rise, we had a crazy little thing called Ash versus Evil Dead, which is a TV show. And I'm like, you can't do a TV show with this. What's going to have a demon of the week? But I was genuinely surprised. I just recently caught up with it and I had a great time. Kind of what you said, Ryan. I think it combines the sweet spot of keeping the horror, making it really gory, making it basically an R-rated movie, and still having a good time. But yeah, people's thoughts on Ash versus Evil Dead.
I just loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I mean, and it does get better to me as it goes, because in the first season, they do kind of have a little more less practical effects in the get-go. But as it gains steam and momentum, they focus more on keeping the practical effects to the forefront. And it's just a continuously entertaining ride. And to where things go, I like the two characters that kind of hook up with Ash and become his his crew, they bring back the horror. You have the horror, you still have the comedy, all the goofy stuff that Ash does. So you get the best of both worlds. The unfortunate thing is that it was on Stars and not something like HBO. Because I think if they would have done it on there, it would have had more legs and lasted longer. The one benefit of that being on Stars was that they could go for the gusto. And like I said, when you get this episode 2 of season 2, I mean, holy, they are basically saying, we do not give a fuck and we will do anything that we want to. And we will go there and you're just going to be along for the ride. And it is riotous. I mean, both in its, scares and guffaws. I mean, it's just absolutely, I can't recommend it highly enough. But I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that, Tappert, Raimi, and Campbell have maintained control of it since the beginning. They've never let anybody else, take over their baby. They've jealously kept control of it. And like you said, it's great that they allow their whole vision is to bring in new blood. And to movies, they're like, well, we can make one every few years and get some new blood to take this and do it. We have our Bible we give to them and say, here you go have fun.
Ash is still the lovable asshole hero that we all love. He's still there. The effects are awesome. It's good, gory fun. They still have the humor in it, and that's what I love. They brought back the humor. Season 1, I don't want to say it's slow, but it's more serious in a way. But then when season 2 kicks in, then they start really having fun.
I give credit to writing a character from film and transferring it over to TV because, I think there's expectations, especially with such an iconic character. And I think something I really love about the TV series is that the writers knew. It makes me think of kind of Doctor Who, why the Doctor has a companion is so that these, Pablo and Kelly are there to kind of humanize Ash and kind of also keep him in check. So he's not the Bogart all the time, but it's still the same Ash we love. And I really think they do a great job building into that character from each season. Like season 3 really does a really great growth for that character without kind of spoiling anything. And, for television, I thought it worked brilliantly. And I think it's a great bridge for fans that didn't like the modern movies that kind of came out, because it is throwing back to things that we love and we know. And it's really impressive to get 2 characters that actually are great to counter Ash.
Yeah.
I've said it before. I think it really peaks season 1, episode 2, because that's the episode that I'm in. My role is incredibly small but pivotal, as Ash's white trash trailer park neighbor. But that said, I think my greatest achievement as an actor was holding my shit together when I got cast in doing Ash versus Evil Dead. First of all, I go in for a costume fitting. I'm waiting for them to bring me my stuff. And they wheel by a costume rack, which is 15 identical blue shirts and brown pants, because Bruce gets his costumes very dirty during shooting. And they wheeled that on by. And then I went in and there's Bruce eating sushi at the end of a long day to say hello to. And of course, I had seen him just before I moved in Bubba Hotep at the Chicago premiere. And then just before we sat down, Sam Raimi came in and said, "Hi, I'm Sam." And it was everything I could do to go, I know you're Sam. Everybody knows you're Sam because you're Sam. And Mimi Rogers was in the episode. Well, Mimi came to the makeup table in Deadite makeup. She had been doing her makeup test. Well, for people who don't know, that type of prosthetic takes hours to install on an actor. And so they had given her a full installation. Well, she realized they weren't going to be able to everybody would have been waiting at the table for like an hour as they cleaned it off her. And she's like, I'll just go up and do it. And then you can take it off afterwards. So Mimi Rogers came to the table and did the read in Deadite makeup. As far as the series, I really like it. It's a character that I feel a personal connection to. It's a series I love. I thought that it was written with integrity. The New Zealand crew could not have been more invested in making something beautiful. for this group of people. Raimi's been here making Xena installments and Jack of all trades and all of the Lucy Lawless projects that have happened here. This is a group that when you come to them and go, we need to tear someone's arm off interestingly, you've got 5 guys who can go, yeah, we can do that. We've got arms in stock, but we should probably build one from scratch. That would be great too. So I really enjoy it very much.
I have only seen, I think, almost all of season 1 because we got like a free Stars promo week or something, and it was like, oh my God, we have to watch as much of this as possible or whatever. And then, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's a lot of television and movies out there. So, we forgot about it, and I haven't gotten back to it, but we really enjoyed it. My parents and I watched it because, they were the ones who had Army of Darkness on VHS when I was a little shaver. So we enjoyed what we saw of season 1. And it is really remarkable to have 2 people who can hold their own against Bruce Campbell. We weren't sure how that would work. But it's brilliant. And I'm so glad to hear that subsequent seasons improve. We thought season 1 was pretty good, but I'm like, okay, we got to just find all of it and just binge the hell out of it. And I can't wait.
They are available on Blu-ray.
Nice.
Yeah, I actually got mine from my local public library branch. They had.
I'm not sure if small town Ohio library branch will have them, but the larger city where I work and has a bigger library system might
give it a
have
shot.
those.
I don't know if you know this, Anna, but there's something called the internet, and they got lots of different places that you can. I just wanted to use your joke on you. That's all. Sorry.
On computers? They have the internet on computers now? That's amazing.
Phones too. Phones. Isn't it amazing?
Let's circle back around and offer our final thoughts on this incredible franchise. And thank you all for an amazing discussion tonight. Anna, can we go and kick things off with you?
By and large, 3 out of 5 ain't bad, let's say. But I appreciate, and especially after this discussion, as usually happens with discussions where people don't always agree on things, I've come away with a better appreciation for 2013 and Evil Dead Rise. I don't know when this year Burn is coming out, but I'm pretty excited to see what they're going to do with it.
Evil Dead is my all-time favorite horror movie. Thank you for letting me come on here to talk about my all-time favorite horror movie. And I love the series as a whole as well. And I plan to be there day 1 when Burn comes out to watch it. Yeah. Thank you again. Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Jen.
Yeah, Evil Dead, the whole entire world is amazing. It's must watch if you're a horror fan.
Christy?
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment. If you are a horror fan, you must see at least Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2. Not necessarily going to say Army of Darkness. Sorry, Sam. But Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2, especially, you can see the influences those films have had on other filmmakers. Edgar Wright and Eli Roth. Sam Raimi, I just find him to be a genius. I love watching everything that he does, even A Simple Plan, The Gift, Drag Me to Hell, very Evil Dead-esque. I'm just so glad that we got to enjoy this time together. We got to bond, everybody. I loved it.
Yeah.
Joseph.
Yeah, I think Evil Dead, Bruce Campbell was very much an influence for me in my development as an actor, as an artist, to the surprise of no one who's ever seen my work. And more than that, I think Raimi's, particularly The Evil Dead, opened my eyes to directors as a visual stylist, particularly during my lifetime. I was aware of, I think of myself as a cinephile. I enjoy older films. I enjoy foreign films. I think Raimi was the first time that I was confronted with, oh, there's a directorial voice that makes those decisions. And I enjoy Raimi's decisions, but beyond that, I think he made me aware to look for that in other films. And I really appreciate that these films enabled me to do that.
And Daniel.
Love it, love it, love it. I mean, it got me into horror, and the comedy aspects of it, like Joseph said, they've influenced almost every comedic role I've ever played in some way. And really, it's I think Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi's, they just go for it with everything, and they're like, yeah, that's what we're gonna do, and that's the only way you'll find out if it works or it doesn't work, is if you go full throttle all the time. And I also love it's reminds me of Michigan a lot. Love Letter to Michigan. The only gripe I'll have this whole time is it's not even a gripe, but just always kind of cracks me up how they always try to sell the farmlands of Michigan when it's New Zealand, and that is not how the farmlands of Michigan look in any way.
Very true.
As with most of these films that we talk about on this show, they have become classics over the course of our lifetime, or even preceding us. But I think there's a tendency to kind of take them for granted and not necessarily go back to them back to front. And so I really appreciated the opportunity to do that, especially knowing that y'all were waiting for me at the end of this to talk about them, because I've not gone through the entire series this close together. And it was really lovely to watch all these films in conversation with one another. Each film is different, and I would not have thought you could do that. I would not have thought you could start over each time. Army of Darkness starts over. Evil Dead 2 starts over. Evil Dead 2013 starts over. And yet they all manage to bring that same spirit. They all love each other. Like, all of these films are like, yeah, I like you too. They're not like trying to outdo each other. They're like, yeah, watch what I can do too. Again, thank you all. This has been a great conversation. I love hearing what people's thoughts are. That's what makes these conversations so much fun for me, is that I'm able to see things through different lenses. So thanks for sharing that. Until next time, keep searching, keep exploring, and keep sharing the scare.